Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It's your Captain Cody, and we are keeping it geekly with our new guest, Adam Rose. We're here to break down Corollary and everything in between. And this was such an awesome ride in a world where if, there's two of everything, and if one dies, the other one, other dies with it. That is such an interesting concept. Before we dive into it, let's break away from the twos and let's get right to the one. Adam, introduce yourself to us. Let us know who you are and how you got into comics.
Well, thank you for having me, Cody. This is awesome. I'm really excited to start the new year with you because I don't know. I feel like coming into the Corollary now that it's all collected is pretty exciting to me. I've been loving comics since I was a tiny kid. Since like my grandfather got me my first stack when I was 10 years old, and oddly enough, one of the first comic books I ever got, this seems so obscure, well, maybe not now, but it was a Doctor Who comic. I've been writing them on my own and then partnered with artists for the last 15 plus years. But also still an avid reader of them, and I teach them. I can't get enough of the medium. I think the form of comics, like the American form, but manga, European comics, you name it. I dive in as deeply as I can. I just think it's such an important art form. I think the storytelling we can do, both the interconnectivity of just text and visual it is jazz. I've said this before, but it's kind of funny. The birth of jazz kind of came at the same time as the birth of comics in the United States. And I think there's a reason, because there's this free form beauty to it, but there's a pattern, there's a rhythm. And if you can click into that, you click into something beautiful.
No, that is so awesome, man. So what was some of your first previous works? I know Corollary wasn't your first book, right?
Yeah, no, I had a book that more of a middle grade, if I were to classify age wise, called Playground Attack of the Gurglebots. And it's still available on Amazon and stuff. And the publisher's name is Marcosia. They're out of England. And the premise for that was this kid at school. He's the new kid at school. And all of a sudden he eats the wrong radioactive vegetables. And now all of a sudden he has the powers of the playground. Any playground game he plays is real. If he plays freeze tag with you, he can freeze you. If he plays TV tag, he can turn into any character he says. Hide and seek with him, red light, green light, you name it. It's a different ball game when he's playing. So that was an earlier work. And then I've done some anthology work. Actually, Corollary started out that way. It was a little mini snippet of it that was in an anthology by One She, which is a smaller publisher up north. And I've done a couple other little comics here and there, and just I keep writing it. I have 4 or 5 different projects in various stages right now. So it's my lifeblood.
It's hard to eat your veggies. I can only imagine eating radioactive veggies. That sounds like such a fun book. Corollary was also such a really fun reading experience as well. We have Captain Andromeda as the protagonist. Can you give us a little bit about what Corollary is and Captain Andromeda as well? I loved her character. That was such an awesome what's the word I'm looking for? Such an awesome twist, I guess, too. It blew my mind.
Oh, no, I appreciate that. No, it came from years ago when my daughter, I was putting her to bed. She was 4 years old at the time, and we had some friends that just had twins, and she just said, as I'm tucking her in, if one of them laughs or gets tickled, does the other one laugh? And I was I don't know. That's fun. That's an interesting question. And then I just took it to a very dark corner of the universe. And that's not to say that it's purely, I'm not reinventing the wheel here, because, obviously people have been fascinated by the relationship twins have forever. And there's, there have been moments where you hear about somebody in a different part of the world having oh, my twin just got hurt or something. Or they call them, oh yeah, it's funny, I just burned my hand on the stove. That's weird. So that those things are documented, or maybe that's not the right word, but it's been mentioned in life. And I'm also just a huge science fiction fan and writer of science fiction, and I just wanted to create a universe, a sandbox of my own that definitely is paying homage to people that I like love and worship, like Saga, Guardians of the Galaxy, but also with an element that I think is hopefully a little different as far as I'm kind of bringing in like a fantasy element too. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, this is probably dating me, but there's an old post-apocalyptic barbarian cartoon called Thundar the Barbarian from the 80s. And that, so influences like that all over the place, plus like heavy metal, 2000 AD. And, but I also wanted to have like a pure heart at the center, like something I just continue to develop as a writer and understanding of, and always in practicing and revising is no matter how great or crazy your concept is, you got to have a character that you care about. You have to like, what do they want? And Captain Andromeda is a complicated person.
Yeah.
They, they have this bond with a sister that we are, not sure about what's happened to and how she still exists in this universe where if your twin dies, so do you. But it's, at the heart of it, it's this grand adventure that spans a galaxy, but it's also about what is family,
Mm-hmm.
who is important to you, and who are you when you're not with your family? Because we all kind of shift identities all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like here, you and I are talking on here, and this is a different version of ourselves than we are when we get off and we go about our interactive life at home.
Mm-hmm.
So, Andromeda is trying to figure out who is she without her sister, who is she with her sister, and we also kind of learn about her sister as well, and what Cass and what she's like as an individual, and what makes them different, but also what makes them a family.
Wow. Wow. For everyone watching, right here is the link. You can order this from Amazon. So they're ordering, is it issue 1 or is it the actual collection?
I'm excited to say this is the collected edition. So it came out in single issues through Source Point Press starting last April, monthly. And at that point, at least, where there were no paper delays, so it actually came out every month. The whole 4 issues made it finished up in July. And then the trade actually was initially going to be out in September, but then there were some shortages, I'm sure you're well aware of, just in the printing world. But then it finally came out early November. So it's kind of not been that long. And the exciting part of the collected edition is it has some bonus materials. I was able to get a great friend of mine, this other artist, to do like a pinup in the back. His name's Shaheen. He's actually also a doctor, lives in Los Angeles, and he just did this beautiful inked and colored little portrayal of our twins in the back. And I had someone who's like a mentor to me. I feel like I'm his apprentice. This writer, Adam Beechin. He's done a lot of. He wrote like Batwoman. He's done countless cartoons like Transformers, Legos, you name it. And he wrote this really awesome, sweet introduction for the book. And then there's some bonus materials just showing Rob Ahmad, the artist's process. Mm-hmm. Because the other thing about this, I don't know if I told you when we were emailing, but Rob watercolored this by hand, the first 3 issues. And then he got exhausted by it. So that's why we also have Gabby Metzler as the other colorist, because she came in for the 4th issue, and we were a little nervous when we were making this, is it people gonna notice? But she was able to kind of digitally match what he did for the first 3 to make it have that watercolored vibe. And that was a big, I don't know if the word's risk, but maybe it is, because initially Rob and I were thinking, we'll just have certain pages, maybe flashbacks are watercolored. And then we were talking to Source Point Press, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is so unique! It's so new, and
mm-hmm.
let's make the whole book like this." So next thing you know, it transformed it, and I think that connects to what I was saying earlier about a merger of fantasy and science fiction, because I think that watercoloring gives the tone of this meshing of those genres even more, almost more permission to exist, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm happy you brought that up because I was about to bring that up next. Like the artwork and the colors in this are just so gorgeous. It was so hard not to get lost, like looking in just staring at the pages. And it blows my mind that he was traditionally like water painting this. Like that explains like how he was able to get so much detail into it. It is just absolutely gorgeous. Like, can you give us a little bit more about the creative team and how that looked like working with them?
Sure. No, so Rob, Ahmad, and I met. Well, we've never met in person. He lives in England, and he was referred to me by another artist who said, "Oh, he's going to fit perfectly for this for you. You got to see if he'll do it." So I pitched with him, and he immediately was on board. And we initially, I don't know if you're familiar with Future Shock with 2000 AD, but 2000 AD is also another UK. Judge Dredd is like their biggest commodity probably, but they have these little mini comics called Future Shocks they only can be 4 pages, and they're always like in the kind of hard sci-fi world. And I was like, well, Rob, let's just, I have the whole script for the whole story, but let's try and tell like a mini little almost prologue, and see what, like almost like a Future Shock. So we did it like that, and then realized that we just had to keep going with it. And then SourcePoint was immediately interested in it, and Cam Kirkow kind of came on to help us with the editing process. And then of course DC Hopkins is our letterer, and DC is just, and I'm working with him on like some current projects right now too. He's amazing. He
kills it, yeah.
He's a prose pro, and he was very patient because that's something I did a few times. Is there, I wanted to get this as perfect as possible, and there were sometimes I would catch some of my verbosity overwhelming the beauty of the page, and I'd see that when DC would do the lettering, I'd be like, DC, I gotta have you, I gotta cut this down. Like I want the character to get out what they're saying in an easier way. So the back and forth, the relationship with everybody in this was just spectacular.
No, that is so cool, and it had to have been a remarkable feeling having those first 4 pages get picked up by SourcePoint Press.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, just having them come on board for this was amazing, and they've been nothing but supportive. And it's definitely an interesting classification too, because some people are like, well, how old can someone be to read this? And my answer is deliberately foggy, because I have kids, so I know my son is now 13, but at 10, which I think some 10-year-olds are more than ready for this comic he could handle a little bit of violence, a little bit of blood in there, even like watercolored blood, like cartoony. But my daughter, Caroline, who's now 10, going on 10, she couldn't handle that. So I think this is a book that is great for people of a certain mentality at that age, but then also definitely for adults.
No, absolutely. And it's awesome. I got 3 kids myself. My oldest is my daughter. She just turned 10 in August. So I mean, we're kind of just on the same wavelength. Yes. And it's funny because you're saying that, and I totally 100% relate to it. But then I think back to when I was their age, and all the stuff I watched when I was like 6. I was watching like Child's Play and all that stuff, and it's like it just blows your mind, doesn't it? It's like our parents were okay with that, but it's like we know better. Like,
oh man, well, it's funny you mentioned that, because full confession at the moment, and you can judge me on this, world and Cody. Felix and I, my 13-year-old son, we just watched Michael Mann's Heat.
I don't think I've seen Heat, or if I have,
Heat.
Is it old?
Al Pacino, Robert.
Okay, yeah,
De Niro.
I did. All right, yeah. Hey, dude, it's, I don't know what it is. It's like with my boy, is like 6, and we will like. My daughter, like I handle her like she's an eggshell, but when it comes to him, I'm like,
my daughter, yes.
like like we're like suplexing each other. Like I don't know what it is, but it's like I don't know. It's your right hand man, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. You mentioned like what we grew up watching. Yeah, my aunt and uncle took me to like 48 Hours when I was in 1st grade. Yeah, that's Eddie Murphy, Nick Nolte. I heard all my first F-bombs, and it's just. Yeah, so I get, but Corollary, no, it's nothing like 48 Hours or Heat, but it's, I think, it's definitely, but that's the other thing that I think and as a parent and as a writer, and just watching kids, like they don't want you to give them something to read that's their level. They want everything to be a level up. And that's true with what they're watching too. Like they don't want to see their exact, like, kind of, their G rated world. They want to see the PG, that keeps going up because they want to see what's next. They don't want to see what's now. They want to see what's next for them. And that's what they're most attracted to. And yes, sometimes that's a few extra steps. So I think Corollary kind of can challenge somebody to kind of look at what these like young adult characters are dealing with, and also adults can kind of get their own point of view from it too. So I realize more and more, you never want to I think as a writer, you always want to write your truth. You don't want to I'm writing it for this group of people. You got to write whatever's true to you, and then you'll figure out who else is in on it.
No, absolutely. We have J. Michael Miller over on YouTube. Think that all the time when I see a YouTuber do something weird in a kid's video. And then we have Anton Nito over on Twitch. Heat. Wow, quality content. And then, Stardom Young. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember watching, what was it? Like Stone Cold way back in the day when I was a kid. And there's probably going to be a whole section of people who are like 25 and under who are like, Stone Cold? You mean the wrestler? Like, no, the biker movie. Like, I watched that as a kid. Like, that is like old stuff. Like, but I don't know. Like, it's another weird question, right? Like, does watching stuff like that at an early age, like, wire our brains to think differently when we grow up? It's a really interesting concept. And
yeah,
this book is another one too. In a world where there's two people, one dies, the twin dies too, but we have one captain who is still alive. That's a precious commodity, and the whole world wants to know what is going on. Everyone, right here is the link to buy this book. Find out the answer for yourself. Now, Adam, with that being said, we've kind of deep dived into this book a lot. What else is next for you on the horizon?
Well, I've been working on a couple of projects that I'm really, really excited about, and just have to be patient because obviously, like, the writing part is what I have control over. But I'm working with one artist in particular, Magenta King. He did Jenny Zero with Dark Horse, and he's done a bunch of humanoid books. And I can't wait for his pages to be in so that we can get that out there and see what people think, as well as another. And these are both definitely, I'd say like age-wise, like in the Corollary and up, like to adult level kind of stories. And then this other project I'm working on with another artist, his name's Jose Luis, and he and I are it's kind of a science fiction superhero mashup, which so both are very different sandboxes that I hope to have big announcements for in the next couple months. I know people are excited to see the work that these people are putting out, and the talent is incredible. And it's funny too, just working with these two different artists at the same time and seeing how gorgeous their work is, but also how different their styles are.
Absolutely. We have J. Michael Miller on YouTube. Really like the art style for the interiors too. I don't know if you were here for it, Jay, but Adam was telling us how the artist actually traditionally water painted the first 3 issues. So that they are mind-blowing. Like, I remember reading this and just being like, wow, this is gorgeous. Like, this must have took forever, but to find out that it was water painted, like, that just like adds such a level. Like, I would have so much anxiety because one slip up,
Oh yeah, no, and I think Rob, that's why he got at the end of the 3rd issue, he was toast. He's like, it was a big kind of stressful moment at the time, but later we just, Gabby knocked it out of the park digitally and didn't miss a beat. But yeah, and I think, like, it was just such a happy, not accident, but just happy experiment to just do this entire book in this form. Because I don't think I've seen anything like it and I'm not like tooting its own horn here. I'm just saying I've not seen another comic or graphic novel that is all watercolor like this. So I feel pretty excited by that fact.
Yeah, it was a really gorgeous experience, writing and art wise. I enjoyed your story just as much as I did the art. I think it was a perfect combination for each other. So Adam, I appreciate you coming on here, breaking down this awesome book, breaking down everything in between. And as much as I love promoting you and your work, this is a show where we really can capitalize on some advice for anyone who might be new to the scene. So with that being said, for anyone who is watching and they're having trouble just getting started with their story, what type of advice would you offer them to help them get motivated?
Great question. And I still, wrestle with it all the time. But I think the first thing I say is treat your first draft like just a big, messy brainstorm. Don't edit yourself. Don't edit yourself. Don't edit yourself. Like, I can't emphasize that enough. And just realize that really the work is going to be in the revision process. That's where you're going to get to know the characters. That's where you're going to get to know where you need to connect the dots more thoroughly. And as far as, I guess, if you're talking just particularly about writing a comic, don't feel like there's only one way. Like, maybe you've done some research on your own and you said, oh, well, I got to go with the template that I see that Image Comics likes. Just write your story the way you want it. And then you'll figure out like how to like kind of translate it to be accessible to whatever artist you pair up with. And obviously, if you're a writer and an artist, I'm jealous. I am. I'm starting to draw more and more on my own, but I think I'd be years away from getting to do my own book. That would be a dream come true. But who knows? I mean, right now I just draw for fun. And actually, I will say this: that is another bit of advice I'll give. I've learned that, like, and I've taken some drawing classes too. As a writer, especially if you're a writer for comics, do some drawing. It actually it kind of opens up your ideas for what you want to see on the panel, even if your stuff is, just stick figures. Just doing that work once in a while, it kind of taps into a different side of your own storytelling.
Well, it makes sense too, because then you kind of look at things differently from the point of view of the artist as well. Yeah. And then you realize, like, hey, maybe I'm asking too much for this. Maybe, this was plausible before, but now that I kind of understand things a little bit more, maybe that doesn't work or make as much sense.
No, and the last thing I'll say, a big lesson that just took like 10 years of growing pains as a comic book writer, is there's only so much you can put in one panel. Like a quick example is you could say, Jamie crosses the street licking an ice cream cone and sees a giant robot coming at her. Well, I would say maybe you have to take out one of those things. I mean, is it possible to fit all of that in one panel? Yes, but sometimes you're creating too many actions in one panel. How about panel one, Jamie's crossing the street with the ice cream cone. Panel two, we see a giant robot's point of view looking down at her. And panel three, you see like her reaction to the robot. You gotta slow your brain down, and remember, less is more, actually, as far as what you expect to see in each panel. And that's gonna help your storytelling significantly and your artist.
Man, thank you so much. Some heavy hitting advice as well. That makes a lot of sense too. I would almost think looking at one panel with multiple things going on would almost overload the reader, in a sense, like, and when you get overloaded, you want to put the book down. You don't want to keep reading. So, that makes sense. Thank you so much. J. Michael Miller saying the art is beautiful. I have to agree. Guys, one last time, here is the link to buy. This is available to buy right now, right? Or is it?
Oh yeah, Amazon. Source Point Press's website has it, but Amazon, Target, Barnes and Noble, like a lot of comic book shops. I mean, I think Diamond too. Like, they have it. It's just I can't say your local comic shop has it, but they could definitely order it.
And then how many pages? I want to say it was like what, 92? Yeah, 92 pages at $19.99. So outstanding price as well, guys. Adam, thank you so much for swinging by and hanging out, guys. It is Thursday, the day after New Comic Book Day. Treat yourself and pick up this awesome book today. With that being said, it is time for us to wrap up. I hope you have a lovely Thursday, but most importantly, guys, keep it geekly.